Good night. Wow. That's something like that. Go ahead and call the meeting to order with 6 members present. 2.01 is approve the agenda. Good night.
It's awfully loud.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
I can hear the ring after you, too.
Got a hot mic, got a hot mic.
All right, 2.01, approve the agenda.
Joe Biden.
So moved.
Second. She moved.
Been moved by Susan, seconded by David that we approve the
Marge.
agenda.
Marge moved it.
By Marge, sorry. Any further discussion? Not all those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. It is 6 tonight, right?
Yep.
All right, 3.01, comments from the public. Is there anybody signed up? All right.
Shoot, I should have brought the steps.
4.01, board reports.
That's for the last 3 weeks.
I have one.
All right, go ahead, Marge.
I went to ORC a couple weeks ago. Basically, there isn't not a lot to report. The participation is down on sports, basically the older boys and girls. And they talked about the reason for that, and one of the questions was, were they getting the information from the schools? And yes, they are. The information is being sent home. Whether it's being read or not, that's another story. But yes, it's been sent home with monthly newsletters in all of the schools. So we also talked about the scholarship, which American Eagle picks up that scholarship that we now have for people who can't afford based on free and reduced lunch. And so they had an item, a budget number, and they didn't use very much of that. Well, they used quite a bit, but not near all of it. And so they were wondering why weren't they using it all? And I thought, you know, it's you pay for a fourth of it or you pay for a half of it, depending on free or reduced. And with the economy the way it is, there are people that do not have the fourth or the half for something they don't have to do. Mm-hmm. And so they talked about ways to help that. They didn't want to go free, but they did talk about maybe some kind of a donation that would help some of those families who need that extra help, but they didn't settle on anything. Basically, they talked about donations, and I have a list here. I'm not going to go through the whole list, but the donations that the ORC give. And basically, it's things like if someone's having a moneymaker for, there's one Rodney White Foundation who, a child that died of cancer, and they have things to earn money for that foundation. And so typically, the ORC would give a free swim pass or something like that to donate for them to bid on, or however they do it. And basically, they give $6,000 worth of those kinds of things. The one, $3,000 value one, was 15 pool passes to OU. They're very seriously considering not doing that. What they do instead of that for other groups is they give a pool party for the city or whatever group it is. For instance, Lincoln, Appanoose, West Franklin, they get individual pool pass, one, not 15. And City of Ottawa gets some pool passes to give for whatever reason. But that is, I was unaware that they gave that kind of donations out. Of course, you have to realize all but one or two of these are pool passes. It doesn't cost them anything. It's worth that, but it doesn't actually cost.
No expense.
No expense. So it's a good PR. It's a good way to help out these different groups, et cetera. And
Marge, before you left that, I wonder if they've ever considered doing an in-kind thing, like if they have to pay 25% and it's $10, maybe the kid could work it off, or
I don't know, but I can take that back.
like, be an umpire at a couple games or sell sell at the
I
Legion or
will
something,
bring
I
that
don't know.
back to them. They feel like they need to have some ownership, or therefore they would come to some of it and then be on a team and then not come and cause all sorts of problems that direction. So they needed some kind of a commitment, and that would give a commitment. So I will suggest that. I think that's basically all except the city. I thought you might be interested in knowing, you know, we've had a rep for how many years? Dennis, I don't know, 5, 6, 7
6.
years?
Probably 6.
And the city have decided they would have a rep, and they take turns alphabetically, one a month. And I said, that was a great idea. I don't know why we didn't think of that. But I feel like that's fine for them, but I think what we do is fine too, because if you go, then you kind of understand it. The same person kind of understands the background and the history and all that, so anyway, I thought they are sending someone for the first time in this. No, I won't say for the first time, because there has been individual times when they've been there, but basically for this duration now, they're going to do it every time, which is a good thing. So that's all I had.
And the older kids not participating as much, it seems like that as kids get older, the ones who are serious about it join these traveling teams.
That's
was
exactly
the-
the problem.
And the young, and then the other ones drop out. It's
Yeah.
like as kids get older, some of them grow away from it and quit playing. You don't get as big of groups. But the ones that are serious are always on all these traveling teams.
Specialized.
Mhm.
So
That
that's,
is true. They
that
they
hurts.
understand that too.
yeah.
Little competition there,
Mm-hmm.
indirectly or, you know,
Mhm.
directly.
Thanks, Marge.
Mhm.
Does anyone else have a board report? All right, 4.02, superintendent report.
Okay, first of all, Mike Norris has sent a few things here as of late, and NEA is pursuing our prohibitive practice case. So that will be, their intent is to be heard at a judicial level, I guess, or I don't know, understand all of the.
They're gonna take it to district court, sue us in district
I
court.
make that assumption that they will, unless there's somebody else other than the Department of Labor found nothing. And they are actually noted in part of this that the erroneous finding that they made or something. So it'll be interesting, but they're pursuing that. Also, Mike has said that there's a possibility of having mediation on July 5th over the construction issues. He hasn't got details. They were looking for a date, and that's just one that seems like that may fit if all parties agree. So that's still moving along, and I have it on the calendar, but don't know details if it'll even happen, but that was in the mix. School finance, I put in front of you a spreadsheet that has ending cash balance history on one side, and in the back are transfers. Let's start with the transfers, the smaller chart that has a total of what we had published for transfers, and then what we're proposing for transfers. And these numbers could change still. We're in the process of finishing out the books and finalizing things. But I think they're fairly accurate. And you can see our proposed transfers are $133,566 less than what we had published. And if you turn it back over, you can see projected balances in those accounts, and then there's a set of explanations down below. On supplemental general, that number may change some, but you see the state actually is doing state aid on 86% instead of 83% that they originally said. So we're actually going to get some more money into that. Now, that doesn't increase our budget authority this year. So next year, we'll probably look at publishing that even higher to make sure that we can spend all of the budget authority that the legal max that we could have. That dollar amount will be used to lessen the mill levy above what it normally would be, because you wouldn't have to raise that many dollars in the mill levy with that carryover. Adult ed will transfer $25,000 to Neosho County to start, and then we'll have our $500,000 in the budget for that program. At risk, you can see that it's kind of up and down as far as where we were in '07, '08, '09 last year, and now it's up a little bit, or not from 2010 and 2011. It's down a little bit from those 2 years, but again, that's going to be a big change next year in the way they do the formula for high at risk and things, and I'll review that in 1 second. But the other budgets, you can go down, driver's ed. We're not transferring as much in driver's ed. Our fees, we really need to look at and probably lessen what we're charging right now, because we get more state aid than what we were a couple of years ago. So next year, we need to really look at that and probably lower the fees for that. Contingency reserve, that'll leave us, if we have the $1.2 million carryover, that'll leave us at 8.5%. Vocational budget, we should have the house all but done. It's going to make a huge difference whether we get that sold sooner than later. If we have to sit on that, then that's going to make a difference in the budget also. But our plan is obviously to have that house sold.
Where is it? Again, where is it?
Oh,
Right
what's
along.
the street name? It's,
It's in the Cuttings edition,
Yeah.
the one that's by the fairgrounds. Across the street from the
What?
fairgrounds, but it's over a ways.
what's the name of the street?
I think it's Willow.
Willow. Yeah.
It's right across the street from you.
Okay.
Yeah.
You just tell they don't let me out much.
I like started thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, it's right across the street from you, in that neighborhood.
Okay.
Kind of a rough neighborhood, we probably shouldn't.
It is a
Yeah.
rough neighborhood, I wouldn't.
Textbook fund, again, we're gonna be looking at that dollar amount, 196,000 projected carryover. This year, obviously, we spent the money just last month on journeys. Middle school math, we had already done. High school math is up, but we'll also have consumable expenses coming out of there too. So as we go through this, close the books out, we'll have a better idea, but I think these are gonna be fairly close to what we end with.
Is that a typo on contingency? Should it be 1206, 785 for both years? Is that just coincidence, or is that?
No, that's the same amount we're carrying
Okay.
over right now.
There was a little blip in the journal entries, I'm gonna correct it.
Okay.
We had a canceled prior year purchase order that dropped it down just a hair.
Okay.
So about $90-some.
Okay.
And then, if you look at the total dollar amount, last year we carried over 54%, or 19,376,789. This year that drops down to 51%, $19,007,084. So, again, looking pretty good the end of the year. We'll have all those things, entries done, and for the July, what's it, 10th? Is that our 10th or 12th? 10th. Ninth. What, you'd run on either one. The 9th, for that board meeting and finalize all of those things. On the state level, as far as figuring how things are gonna be done, $58 was added to base state aid per pupil, making it $3,838, up from $3,780. That will increase our budget roughly, using this year's numbers, $189,000. Capital outlay budget, I should have mentioned that there. If you look at that, that number's a lot better than what I first expected. That was 1.875 million. I thought it would be in the 1.5, 1.6. So that number we were able to transfer some funds and do some things there. So that's encouraging. High at-risk weighting, I was really pleased that they did this sliding scale, meaning it used to be a cutoff from 40% to 50%. Anywhere in between was the same dollar amount, either you're above 40 or above 50, or 50 above. And Ottawa's been hanging in the 48, 49, 47, I mean, right there at the 50% mark. Well, the legislators did us a favor this year by doing a sliding scale that actually goes below the 40% threshold and above the 50. And what that'll mean for us then is about 130,000 additional dollars based on our, I'm gonna say 48%, rounded off there, free lunch applicants. And the higher it goes, the more we would get. Every year, we're right at 50%. It's not as big a jump now because of that sliding scale. So that was real good news to figure about $130,000 there. The other thing that I heard at the budget workshop was, and the question was asked specifically, do used modulars count for new facilities waiting? And Dale Dennis said, yes, they do. I'm gonna check with our auditor before I put that in our budget as new facilities waiting and not count on it. But that, if we can count the modular that we put at Eugene Field, that would generate about $42,000 a year for 2 years. So that would more than pay for what we've done there, so.
People are squawking and we're putting in these nice new facilities.
Yeah. So I was shocked. I didn't think, but that question was specifically asked, and he said, yes, they do. So I'll do some more research on it. I'm not planning on it right now. So that's a total of about $161,000 that we could see in our budget next year, which is great to be talking about that instead of we're going to be cut $500,000 or $1 million, and how are we going to cut that? So at least this year we have a pretty good
Business as
outlook.
well. Tell me, when does the new income tax reduction, when does that go into effect?
Well, everything would take effect in July. I mean,
July 1.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. So, so state revenues could be down dramatically.
they could be. I mean, it just depends
So,
what you look
okay.
at. One of the things that Dale Dennis had presented was the Legislative Research Department's fiscal outlook for the years based on the tax incentives that they had approved, and it looks pretty dire.
Mhm.
I think next year, it looked like we would be okay, possibly the year after, but then the out years, 3-4 years, I mean, it could be huge deficits. And that's coming from the Legislative Research Department. I mean, you know, the State Department of Ed, no one put that together but them. So that's still obviously a concern. We could see our LOB if we do what I had said and publish more and make sure that we are able to spend all of the budget authority. We could see that increase by somewhere around $40,000 too, so that would be in addition to that 361. A couple other things, good news, the local option budget state aid that we will receive went from 54 to 56%, and bond and interest state aid that state used to pay 36% of our 36% of what our mill levy had to generate. Now it's going to be up to 38%. So some pretty good news there. I'm really optimistic the next couple years, and time will tell on what the effect the tax breaks will have.
What about LOB? What about our taxing authority? Where are we at? Are we maxed out on that, or are we?
We're at 30. We didn't assess the whole 30. Where were we last year? 29 or a little higher? It's like 29.5%, but we're at 30%. So yeah, we're maxed out there.
Okay.
Now, the only thing that will increase that is if our general fund increases, and then, because it's based on,
Right,
you know, your general fund. And legislators are still using, what year was it, Terry? I didn't. 0809 school finance per pupil figure, so that helps generate some of that too, so.
Okay.
Just a quick note here on our admin retreat. That was excellent. I think it was one of the best ones we had. Got a lot done. We had our 2 new principals came and joined that and had a lot of good input and going to fit right in, and I'm really excited to get them started. But very, very good retreat. The CIS after-school grants, Becky has written those and presented them. We have to wait for the State Board of Ed to give us approval for those, but we have received from the Grant Review Committee that we will receive the Eugene Field and Lincoln after-school program grants that equals $750,000 over the next 5 years, or about $150,000 a year, which is very encouraging, and I'm really pleased that that's gonna help those programs grow. The Garfield grant, actually Becky was working on it today, and we were signing and writing letters and doing some different things that they had asked. If we get that grant, Becky's concerned, but I'm pretty confident if they ask us to change some things that they were in the running. If we get that grant, that's another $405,000, or $81,000 a year for 4 or 5 years. So over $1 million in grants there that very likely, I know, I'm very confident we'll get the $750,000 grant.
Dean, will the after-school programs, or it might be too early to say, will they look like Garfield's looked, or will they be considerably different?
No, I think they're gonna be very similar, Marge.
Okay.
And one thing we talked about when the grant review lady was here about how that was gonna work, and she was giving us some suggestions even that what a lot of the other bigger districts do, they will have themes at each school, so that person that's doing it, whether teacher or outside volunteer, whoever, does that same thing, but does it at Lincoln one week and then moves to Garfield. I mean, so you're not trying to duplicate all those different programs, and
But if you
it
have
makes
a
a lot of sense.
science
So I
base.
think it's gonna be very, very similar, yeah.
That's good.
So there's gonna be a separate program at each school?
Yes.
So if you're only Garfield kids will go to Garfield, only
Right.
Lincoln, okay.
Yeah, there'll be one, if Garfield gets a grant, which
Okay.
I think they will.
And if not, then they'll go
Then
someplace
we'll
else.
have to, yeah, we'll have to do what we did this year and have them go to another school. Or what my thought is that we would probably try to finance that through our budget rather than, by the time you figure the busing and everything, it just would work better.
Okay.
But, so when we get to that point, we'll decide, but I'd rather see it there. That was the end of my report, so I think I went over
All
everything.
right. Moving on to 5.01, approve the workman's compensation premium for 2012-2013 school year.
Do we have a choice?
I move
to
to
No.
approve it.
That is it.
You do better in training and not following anywhere inappropriate.
Yeah, moved by Dennis, seconded by Susan, that we approve the work comps premium compensation, whatever. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign, motion carries 6-0. That one stinks.
Yeah, I know.
All right, 5.02, approve Eugene Field's air handling system. Mike, Richard, you have stuff for us on this, right?
Yes.
Because this just came in, this wasn't here earlier.
Correct. Got it this afternoon.
All right.
After the last meeting, we put together a solicitation for bid for the ventilation or makeup air as one part of a package, and was sent out to bidders. And then we also had another solicitation that was for just the HVAC cooling and heating system, so we could get a idea of what that would run on top of the ventilation part of it. Building controls or building control systems out of Wichita came back in with a ventilation bid of $276,594, which would take care or satisfy that issue that we have at Eugene Field as far as the air quality. And BCI Mechanical out of Lawrence or Gardner came back with $398,000, along with that ventilation package that they put together included the air conditioning and heating of the gymnasium space. So it's a little bit different bid than what it had a little bit more package to it than what Building Control Systems did. And then the other guy was a no bid. The HVAC cooling and heating system was actually bid two different ways. Building Control Systems bid the VRF system, and I'm going to have John Martin from BCS come up and explain exactly what all the VRF system is and what it amounts to, so you can see that. And then I'm going to have Brandon Livingston from BCI Mechanical come up and talk about his package that he put together for us for the HVAC system. So, John?
Before I get to a presentation of the VRF system, when Richard came, or we saw the solicitation, and he was concerned about some indoor air quality problems we wanted to make sure we addressed, and we didn't contribute anything more, and we wanted to the indoor air quality relative to humidity, and we wanted to minimize the energy impact that adding ventilation would provide. So our proposal includes a system that has an enthalpy energy recovery wheel to minimize the energy impact. Dehumidification is being done through a variable capacity compressor and reheat system. So, I mean, it's state-of-the-art technology. And it's in a high-quality piece of equipment with a very good longevity. So I don't know, I think Richard had spoken a little bit about VRF at the last meeting. I think he had some questions. So I want to give a short introduction. Richard said to keep it short. First slide is who is Building Controls and Services. We represent, we've been in business since 1985. We have about 48 employees. We represent Siemens Building Technologies, which is your current facility management system in the district. We represent LG for VRF technology, Aon for other solutions like dedicated outside air and other heating and cooling, and various other heating HVAC equipment. We also support Gamewell Firewall, fire control, security systems, Philip Nurse Call, etc. What is VRF? This is a good place to start because we have a kind of a cutaway picture of a school. As you can see on the low roof in the white, there is a single outdoor unit, kind of like you would expect at your house. But as the cutaway the building reveals that we have multiple systems served by that one system. We have a ducted system that is in the gymnasium, kind of similar to what we see conventionally. If we look at the second floor classrooms, there are ceiling recessed units to where all you see is the grill in the ceiling, and typically you would see one to maybe two of those per classroom depending on the load. And there's several other types on the first floor. Next slide. So what is VRF? VRF stands for variable refrigerant flow, just as if you had a chill water system and you talked about variable chilled water, VRF is variable refrigerant flow. Is VRF new? No, it is not. VRF systems have actually been employed in Asia and Europe for almost 25 years. And that they kind of arose from the need to minimize rising energy costs. So the trademarks of a VRF system is very high efficiency and increased controllability. And if you can see on the bottom there, and some of the countries in Asia and Europe, about half of medium-sized building, under 70,000 square foot, utilize VRF. Okay. Next slide. Okay, so what is a VRF system? A VRF system is a single refrigerant circuit. If we start at the upper right, has an outdoor unit. but all you see coming out from that outdoor unit is one refrigerant piping network serving multiple indoor units, depending on what the architectural or space requirements call for. You can see, let's go to the next slide. Kind of have a diversity of indoor units available. From the top, you see a wall-mounted unit. It's for smaller applications. Right below that on the left and right are ceiling recessed units. We have some of the units that are about the size of our supply grill here. So all you see is the grill. And in the bottom, you see ducted units. Okay, so if we look at the operation of a VRF system, what is depicted here in this picture is one outdoor unit, 4 indoor units, different spaces. They all happen to be in the cooling mode right now. Operates in a heat pump fashion to where they could all be in the heating. But the twist to VRF technology is in the next slide. It's capable of simultaneously heating and cooling different spaces at one time from one system. So in other words, if I'm looking at this, I have a gymnasium and a kitchen that is in the cooling mode. I would normally take that heat that I'm taking out of those spaces and I would reject it to the outside. Well, what VRF does is to reutilize that energy instead of throwing it away and to move it over into other spaces that are requiring heat, as we see in the office space or the top space.
So we need at the high school.
Won't dwell on this, but there are different piping methods. LG is kind of a hybrid version. It kind of minimizes piping, as you can kind of see between the left to employ a lot more piping. LG has a little bit less. It's kind of a hybrid system. So why would I look at a VRF system? Efficiency. Has a much higher energy efficiency and corresponding lower utility cost. Have some information later that kind of will give you a feel for what that is. Its maintenance is lower. It's a cost saving. It's on the maintenance side. Basically, all you have is an indoor unit that has filters that need to be cleaned. Yes, you do have an outdoor unit, but typical compressors. And if this were a new building, you'd have savings on the building first cost and other items. Architects, I'm just going to zero in on if I have an existing building. VRF system is very adaptable. It doesn't have large ductwork to fit in. So it can fit into a lot of spaces and situations that a normal system would not be able to. I'm just going to zero in on superior zone control for engineers. And I'm going to go to the next slide. Contractors like a VRF system just because it's ideal for retrofits. If you have a tight situation, you're not trying to disturb the existing architectural infrastructure. You can do that very well with a VRF system. And occupants, very good, precise zone temperature control, and at the bottom there, quiet operations. Since all of these units, indoor to outdoor, are variable speed fans, variable speed compressors, they are very quiet. So why does it fit in spaces that other systems have a difficulty? Well, you can see on top the size of an air duct. If I changed and I wanted to move heat from one room to another with a water pipe, well, it looks like it gets it's about 1/20th of the size of an air duct. If I use a refrigerant pipe, I'm about 1/10 of that size. AHRI is an independent testing agency that develops benchmarks and standards for testing equipment that can be compared across the industry. So as a consumer, you can evaluate different types of products. LG was one of the first 5 companies to have the VRF system certified in this agency. And there are several items that come out of this testing. EER we've all heard of, which is a energy efficiency ratio on the hottest day or a nominally hot day. IEER, which is the integrated energy efficiency ratio, is supposed to be a representation of how the ambient conditions that equipment is supposed to experience throughout the year. So it has a weighting for that. That's very accurate. If you look here, the VRF, as applied here, in the air-cooled, has IERs up to 21.8. So it's very highly efficient. I mean, we've all heard of EERs, and maybe our home equipment has a 13 SEER rating on it. Well, this is a very high efficiency, and this does not include the energy benefit that would be obtained if you move heating from one room to another. I mean, it's really free. The efficiencies would be higher if they tested. Okay. So how does it compare to other systems? This is a energy analysis that LG did. This happens to be a 6-story office building in Atlanta. And on the right side in the yellow, we have a rooftop system. And with this is the cooling and heating costs of about $162,000, or about twice of what a VRF system is. Well, we can improve that from a conventional rooftop system if we move to a chiller system. You can see that it still takes about 35% more energy than in a VRF system. Well, we've all heard of a very efficient water source heat pump system. It does very good too, but it's still 18% less efficient than a VRF system. And I think that's a quick introduction to VRF. As far as our ventilation system, we are providing 3 different systems. One will serve the north classroom area and office administrative areas. Another unit will serve the south classroom areas, and then one unit will serve the second floor classrooms as well as the gymnasium. They're going to have Siemens controls. We'll have we'll be sampling the CO2 levels in about 3 classrooms per each of these units, so we get a good feeling, and then we can actually do demand ventilation if the census is the amount of students doesn't require that full ventilation. And it will fully integrate back to your existing district system.
You've installed these elsewhere?
Yes,
Okay, and any feedback from those new owners?
it's been good.
Has it?
Been very good.
What types of places have you put it in? In schools? Have you put it in any schools?
Yes, we have one right now that's being installed right now in a elementary school.
Okay.
So
Did you provide Richard a list of the references that he can check?
sure.
Like to see if it works in schools as opposed to like an office building or?
Okay, sure.
Why Siemens Controls?
Why Siemens?
Yeah.
We are the Siemens representative. That's what you have in the majority of your district buildings. Your existing staff are trained to use the Siemens system. I mean, as far as the different scheduling, the logging, other maintenance tasks that they'd be doing. They're very familiar with it. No new training that would be involved.
I guess one of the questions I have some background working with machinery controls, and the Siemens controls were always exponentially more expensive than other brands, and they were also never good at playing nice with other control systems.
Are you talking about like more on the PLC type?
More on the PLC type.
This is not PLC
That's
type.
what I'm asking, but I mean, do you have similar situations where, as far as other components, and if you were to add a different system, do you have to use the Siemens control components, or do you get, like, if you've got activity,
Pardon?
like, do you have an ability to be interconnected with other devices?
There are different types of interoperability, like a BACnet type system where we could integrate.
I have a question about what you have given us here in this bid will take care of the air quality, the ventilation. It
It-
has
it is
nothing to do with the air conditioning part of that.
The first proposal is only for ventilation.
Okay, let's say that we have done that, and those air conditioners that are in the windows will still stay, and they'll use them like they do now?
Yes.
And
Nothing
how will that
changes.
work with your program?
Nothing changes from the ventilation side. We are basically, the existing heating and cooling system will function like they do today. We're just adding ventilation.
And the wiring in the building will take care of both of those
Oh,
components?
I'm sorry. Yes, currently this is just a 240 volt service. The actual building's distribution panel is actually three-phase. So we're actually having the third phase brought from the utility. And so yeah, it'll handle the electrical loads.
And that is in this bid?
It is in the bid.
And then if we would, at a later time, I know it's here in front of us, but at a later time, we would decide to put the HVAC in, is it compatible and you just put it in? Or do we have to do a
From an
bunch of
electrical,
changing?
from electrical, okay.
Any,
Let's talk about different perspectives. From the electrical service, as far as the lines coming into the building would have to be increased to a different size. As far as the ventilation system, nothing is disturbed. With the VRF, the steam boiler would not be used. I mean, I get questions about, can a VRF system heat? And my answer is yes. I mean, I've looked at the loads, and I can see the capacities where actually are much over the heating requirement than the cooling requirement. So it's the heat well. And then at the time that the VRS system would be installed, the window air conditioning units would be removed.
and you said the electricity part would have to be changed. Does that mean we have to take out the old, your new old and put in, or, I mean,
The new what?
okay, you've put this in now,
Mm-hmm.
and then later on down the line, we're gonna do HVAC, say.
Mm-hmm.
Then will we have to redo anything, or can we just do it? You said something about the electricity.
Basically, you will have to set a new service board, or distribution panel that would feed, I believe it would refeed the existing out of it, but it would also serve the new loads. So yes, there would be a new piece of equipment or electrical equipment to serve that,
But it's not going to, we're not gonna have to throw out some of the stuff they're bidding on right now.
not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? Thank you.
Mr. President, I move we accept the
Oh,
Bill, we have,
We have another-
Have another?
BCI is gonna.
BCI came too? I'm
Yes, they
sorry.
did.
I didn't think they were
These
gonna make.
guys have really done a great job with the time constraints, really appreciate everything they did to put everything together in such a short time.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent, Mr. President, and board members. My name's Brandon Livingston. I'm president of BCI Mechanical. We're based out of Gardner, Kansas. I'm also a constituent or a taxpayer, I guess, in your district. My residency is 3637, sorry, I'm short, Osborne Terrace. I have two children in the district. One will be in first grade and the other will be in third grade at Lincoln Elementary. I think very highly of the school district, both my wife and I, and I'm very proud to be a part of it. As Mr. Smith mentioned, I had contacted him actually after I think the initial solicitation was issued, and this is the business that we're in. We're a mechanical contractor based out of Gardner, Kansas. I won't go into my background, but I've got, believe it or not, over 25 years of experience. I was running projects such as this by the time I graduated high school, not by choice, but the business my father was in. I am a degreed engineer and a licensed professional engineer in the state of Kansas, along with a licensed contractor. We employ 27 people. Of those people, 5 of our staff are taxpayers in your school district. 6 of our staff in our company are taxpayers in Franklin County. So we want to become a part of your district in some form or fashion, and we sure appreciate the opportunity to present bid package. One thing I wanted to ask, Mr. Smith had shared the bids for the ventilation portion of the project, and as he mentioned, BCI Mechanical, our company, was $398,000, and BCS was $276,594. I don't know that we mentioned the total HVAC portion of the project. We also turned in hard bids for BCI Mechanical's portion, and this includes the ventilation, both sides. So John Martin, Mr. Martin had presented the VRF system. His bid, correct me if I'm wrong, but for the ventilation and the VRF system was $862,397.
That sounds close.
Okay. BCI Mechanical's bid to provide both ventilation and complete air conditioning for the school was $708,000. So I always go back and review things, and the base bid, there are some differences there, and I'm going to share a few of those with you. I would like to introduce a gentleman that came with me tonight. We approach this as a design-build project. It's a little bit different than a standard project where we have plan and spec, in which you would hire a consulting engineer and architect who would produce a set of design documents that would then be issued for bid by a contractor or multiple contractors. The project was in an accelerated format to satisfy the emergency need, and therefore it was approached as a design-build in a design-build fashion. When I approached Mr. Smith, he mentioned that Mr. Martin had put together a bid package, and so I, in conversation, quickly understood that Mr. Martin supplies the Siemens controls for the district. Mr. Martin sells the Aon equipment that was basis of design. Furthermore, Mr. Martin was selling the LG equipment that was basis of design for the total air conditioning system. Therefore, really all I had to sell was labor. And so we chose to approach this as a design-build project. Therefore, I contacted an engineering firm, independent firm, to come in and provide professional services and input as to the type of system that we would recommend. I want to introduce Jarrett Pearson with PKMR Engineers and let him kind of explain to you how we came to the conclusions that we did.
Thank you very much. My name is Jarrett Pearson. I'm a professional engineer with PKMR, and we have offices in Kansas City and Topeka. And about 1/3 of the type of work we do is K through 12 projects. And over the last couple of years, we have done roughly $40 to $50 million of school construction projects. So the Brandon and BCI Mechanical contacted us and asked if we would come out and look at the Eugene Field School. And it was a very, very short window of time, I believe about 3 days total. But we came out the end of last week, did a site visit, looked at the facility, and noticed that a couple of the key deficiencies were ventilation in the school, and then the old existing heating system is steam convectors, which means controllability is an issue. So, but that's obviously what you get with an older facility. So what we did is we evaluated or considered 3 different HVAC systems for this school. And the first one we looked at was what they call a two-pipe system. The reason that we looked at a two-pipe is because everything would be central equipment, and two-pipe is usually considered on the lower cost for budgetary reasons. The other type of system we looked at was a 4-pipe system, and that's a chiller boiler system. Centralized equipment also. We feel in terms of school districts and schools in general, it's really good to centralize equipment for maintenance because you know it's going to get taken care of. And then we also considered a VRF system, and I didn't have the privilege of knowing what's been looked at before, and it's interesting to hear this gentleman because I agree with many of the things that he has said. We're big advocates of the VRF approach. In fact, we actually have an 80-ton LG system recently we designed and installed on a building in Kansas City. But after looking at the three options, we felt that the best approach for the Eugene Field School was a 4-pipe system, and the primary reasons are you get centralized equipment, you get good controllability, and also that the maintenance lends itself to work well for the facility people. But what I want to encourage you to think about is really the paybacks of these systems. Without a doubt, the VRF system is a very efficient system. It's potentially 30 to 40% more efficient than standard HVAC systems. But without a doubt, it comes with another 30 to 40% more cost. So if you look at it from a life cycle cost analysis, a VRF system compared to a 4-pipe system, it's typically around 15-year payback. Now, I agree with what the gentleman said about the LG system heats, and usually heats well. We have found using a VRF system in buildings that have minimal insulation, which is definitely Eugene Field School, that you risk not having enough heat. So there's a really good chance that the existing steam system may have to be left in place to implement the VRF. So I'm sharing this with you to give you the reasons we recommended to BCI a 4-pipe system. Ultimately, what is the smart thing for the school district is to look at the options, look at the payback, and determine what's the best life cycle cost. So that's basically how we got to our recommendations. So thank you very much.
I don't want to take up a lot of your time. To conclude, we proposed then a package that was a 4-pipe system with one air-cooled chiller behind the school on the west side, just outside of the electrical room, and just above the boiler mechanical room. And many of you probably don't realize, but in the basement next to the existing boiler room is a large empty room that was formerly coal storage. And there's 2 manhole covers on the west side of the building that served as coal chutes into that room. Based on our survey and the recommendations of PKMR engineers, we then went and began to pursue placing equipment into that abandoned room. Mr. Smith had made it clear on the front end that he wanted to try and protect the integrity of the historic school, the facade and the installation, to have minimal effect in ceiling heights, tried to eliminate chases and placement of ductwork out into the building, and to not affect the aesthetics of the building. It is a beautiful building. And I can tell you it's a very well-built building from having crawled all through the innards of it for a day and a half. So that's a good thing. So the system that we proposed utilizes an air handler in that coal storage room. All of the ductwork that we are proposing to install to provide ventilation air as the base bid, the ventilation bid, everything that we are proposing to install is enclosed in the crawl space under the school. So that's a major difference between Mr. Martin's proposal and our proposal, in that we could merely go in, we're going to core saw holes through the concrete and bring ductwork up in the closet areas of the classroom, so they'll be concealed. There's a few of those that have the closet doors removed. In those cases, we would paint the ductwork to match or enclose that in, fur that in per the district's desire. Go up into the chase above and put discharge air grills. I believe that the other approach was putting exposed spiral ductwork right through the room, just inside the existing closet, basically exposed. So you'll have an exposed spiral ductwork, which is fine in modern construction and in modern, warehouse type, that new modern look. But to try and protect the integrity of the current installation, that's the route we took. We would install a high efficiency, 98% efficient Fulton Pulse boiler, in addition to the boiler that you folks paid to have installed 3 to 4 years ago. The boiler that you have, that's a steam boiler now, is perfectly functional, perfectly operational, and it's only 3 or 4 years old. It's a cast iron sectional boiler. Those boilers will typically last 30 plus years. Our system will utilize our high efficiency boiler to warm the ventilation air in the winter, and then we will use the air-cooled chiller to cool the air in the summer. We have heat recovery off of the chiller, so we take waste heat that we reject normally outside with the fans, and we utilize that heat to warm the air back up on a mild day so that we provide cool, dry air at room neutral temperatures. In the same way that Mr. Martin's unit contains an enthalpy wheel to do energy recovery, so does our air handler that would be located, all of this equipment will be located in the basement. The Fulton Pulse boiler in the boiler room right next to your existing boiler, the air handler in the cold storage room. All of the ductwork would be contained in the crawl space below. For the total HVAC bid, and now that our base ventilation bid, as Mr. Smith mentioned earlier, included air conditioning the multipurpose room. And so that's just something to take into consideration. When we looked at the design of that, we had the right thing to do was to condition that air. I'm not for certain where I guess, is that fed off of your second floor, the roof-mounted unit in your proposal? The multipurpose room? Okay. We're going to replace the air handler that's located under the stage is our strategy. So again, there will be no equipment placed on the roofs. If you look at industry recommendations, and those of the EPA, and in order to maintain system integrity, maintenance is a key issue. And roof access, currently the school does not have any permanent roof access. It requires an extension ladder to get to the lower roofs, and it requires a second ladder to get to the upper roof. We also noticed there were intake grills. Our equipment, none of it's on the roof. So it's ground mounted and basement mounted. So additionally, the maintenance, Mr. Martin in his proposal was planning to put evaporators located in the ceiling. In order to maintain those, you need to get up into the ceiling. So for our HVAC total proposal, we put new piping, 4 pipes in the crawl space. We remove the steam convectors completely, and we install new fan coil units with all new controls and thermostats. The maintenance of the fan coil unit is easily accessible from the floor. It's located along the windows in the event that a maintenance person had to get to that unit during class time, versus the VRF type system with a ceiling mounted piece of equipment. So the intrusion, those are the major differences. It sounds to me like you're considering the ventilation quote. If you do look at the other quote, I take it strong consideration. When you look at the difference in the VRF from Mr. Martin's base bid to doing the total job, including VRF, there's a $586,000 increase to do that. If you look at our base bid and then the increase to provide the 4-pipe system, all concealed in the crawl space, there's only a $310,000 difference to do so. So I might also add, and again, we work with a lot of contractors, industry suppliers here in Kansas City. We would normally look at Mr. Martin as a supplier in our jurisdiction, in our market here. Obviously, he functions as a contractor as well. Siemens Controls, we have a sister company. We rep a company called Distech Controls. They've been in business for almost 20 years, and we build on an open, non-proprietary platform. Whether we do this project or not, I strongly encourage you to consider putting a second controls vendor into your district, and I strongly encourage you to consider using an open, non-proprietary platform, such as what Distech builds on. It's called the Tritium Niagara X platform, and I could be happy to get you more information on that. Other districts have had great success with that. One example, right now we're putting freezer and cooler monitors in the Blue Valley School District on this platform. We subside, and I think the question was asked earlier, one of the members here had asked about could you integrate or tie into other systems. It's very difficult, and I guess correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Martin, but it is very difficult to do so. The system that I'm promoting or recommending that we consider, we're going into the Blue Valley School District and living on the same pair of wires, the same system that Johnson Controls, Honeywell, Stafa, and many other manufacturers reside on. So as a taxpayer in your jurisdiction, I encourage you to always have multi-vendors, and we sure appreciate the opportunity to bid your project. Any questions?
Okay, what's your quote for the air quality without the HVAC?
The air quality,
Match apples and apples. Because right now,
Taking the gym out.
if I took the gym out, it would take about $75,000 off of my quote.
then would we be, Richard, would we then be at apples to apples?
I'm sorry.
Taking the gym out, are you taking the ventilation out of the gym as well?
Just taking the AC
Well,
out.
if I went about it that way, I could increase the size of the air handler in the cold storage room, and then just duct the ventilation air into the multipurpose room, and not condition the multipurpose room. So that would again remove about $75,000 of the cost out of my bid. I think the difference in that, the major difference is in the labor in installing the system. And one thing I'd encourage you, the systems that you're replacing are the original systems. I mean, these systems have been here for a long time. And that's something to take consideration. The boiler system, the 4-pipe system that we're proposing is essentially the same type of system. And I have nothing against VRF technology. I think it's a great technology. We sell it every day when it makes sense. It's a unitary piece of equipment, much like your home unit, and it has a standard or typical life expectancy as dictated by ASHRAE of 15 to 20 years. Correct me if I'm wrong. So if you look at the type of system, the permanentness of this system, and the systems that you're replacing, we are replacing an old system that's there. And I don't know if I added in the total HVAC option, we would reuse your existing steam boiler that you just spent a bunch of money on 3 years ago. However, we would convert it to hot water so that we could accurately control the temperature in the spaces. That was one of the survey complaints that I'd gotten from some of your staff that was in the building last Friday. They mentioned that when the steam system is on, it's very difficult to control, and you have some rooms that are cold and some rooms that are 100+ degrees. And so it would make use of the system, the infrastructure that you already have to the fullest extent. And one more thing, whether I do your job or not, I mentioned this to Mr. Smith. The old system had ventilation openings into the hallways. They were able to open the windows and allow a draft through grills into the hallways. Current code would say that those either need to have fire smoke dampers or need to be sealed off for fire egress. That was something we identified. It was part of our bid. Additionally, on the roof, they had ventilation hoods to allow air out of the building. I would recommend that those be capped and sealed off, whether we do your project or anyone else. There are also intake grills on the outside of the building that at one point appeared to have been they tried to seal them with tar paper, and much of that tar paper has been torn. Anytime you have an opening, you're going to allow infiltration or outside unconditioned air into your building. So if you make sure that those get closed up. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure that that everybody was clear on the ventilation part of it. No matter which one of these guys we use for the ventilation, we could use one or the other for the HVAC as well. So just because one had this package for ventilation, we can use the VRF, or we could use the 4-pipe system. So the ventilation part of it needs to be thought of as kind of a separate entity thing. And
If we approve tonight, there's still time to get the ventilation done
if we do it
before school
tonight.
starts.
Right now, our schedule, and both contractors have agreed with this schedule that they could make this happen. If we could get started tomorrow, day work or day shift would happen until approximately the middle of August. And Dean told me this morning we thought maybe we should even move that up a little bit because of the teachers coming in a little bit earlier. Both contractors, however, said that they thought they could be done the first week or so of August in the classrooms to get out into the hallways to eliminate that possibility. And then starting August 16th, in their bids, is included in this price, is second shift work at nights, because school's going to be going on. So it'd be shift work at nights and on weekends to complete the project with a substantial completion date of October 1. And on the gym, completion date is November 1. So if we do it tonight, we're still looking at November or the end of October before we complete this project. So
But the way I understand is if we did HVAC also, that would go away, that'd take more time, right?
That's correct.
Okay, Richard, I want to ask a clarifying question. Just because the conversation was made, I know, as I understand it, the BCI system is basement up.
Correct.
The ventilation system from BCS is vertical or overhead chase. Am I understanding it correctly?
It would be in the hallways above the ceiling, the suspended ceiling.
We
You're
would have
talking about
visible ventilation duct.
nothing. No. It would be just a refrigeration pipe.
David, are you talking?
I'm talking about the ventilation.
The ventilation system is all he's talking about.
I'm talking about just the air movement.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Do I understand that correctly?
Let's see, John?
Specifically, your question is for the ventilation. The roof
Oh, it's in the classroom.
is mounted on the roof, ventilation duct is exposed right up against the closet wall.
On the inside, not in the hallway.
I have a question. What are you calling closet?
In each classroom, there's a, used to be small closet with doors that closed on it, and inside that closet area of each
But there's no
classroom.
doors now, and it's just a space, right?
Right, mm-hmm.
Well, I've taught there. I know there was no closets there.
You know the word closet.
Yeah, that closet is not a closet. Okay.
Okay, so I'm confused, so help me clarify again.
Okay, the BCS system ventilation will come from the roof.
Yes,
And it'll come down to a spiral duct on the inside of the classroom that would be built in,
visible in the classroom.
visible in the classroom,
Okay. Is that is
against the wall.
against the wall? And then the BCI system is coming up from the ground,
Correct? He's got a,
exposed or not?
well, yes, it is. There's a exhaust pipe coming up through the floor, going up into the soffit of the closet, or whatever we want to call that little area. And that's the exhaust, and then the intake is the same way.
Like, sir, I have a photograph.
Yeah, let me have it. As you can see here, this ductwork right here is going to come up through the floor, up through this grill. This is be the fresh air, and this is the
Exhaust air.
here.
Yeah.
And in CS's proposal, there will be a spiral duct running
So,
this way.
so there will be a visibly exposed duct right across here,
That's correct.
as opposed to in the walls as he shows.
And then these exposed ducts here.
And this is,
actually the intake.
What's our proposed air turns
this
for
is
this?
what it looked like at PCI.
Either one of the systems.
Yes,
Air turns,
Seen that
how many
so
times are we
many
turning the air in the rooms?
Okay,
without doing the,
Based on
right.
the X-ray system.
it's kind of a decision, I didn't know that decision on what it would look like.
Okay.
Now,
Makes sense.
I'm just gonna ask a question. Since there seems to be a little bit more study in this, because we still we need to talk about financing. Is the classic system that's in there, as we rotate through this and get a little bit more detail, if we had just an open window with an exhaust fan on top to suck the air through the old system, would that get us by until we really know what we want to do here?
The old attic fan
Yeah.
approach?
If you next to it.
I'm glad to talk to you guys.
Yeah. Come on up.
I mean, psychologically, we actually took every single window out and put solid glass. So for years, Marge, you've taught there a long time, but.
Yep.
But for years, you could always open the window, and you said there's natural airflow through the natural airflow and draft system using heat exchange and the convection type systems. Are those all open? Are those plugged? I mean, could you see light through them? Do they have rat's nests in them? I mean, to me, if the vents are there, psychologically, until we get and to get air flowing, could you do that till we really
Yeah.
know which way to go here? Because I'm not sure I have enough information to pick one over the other.
But the real issue with school design now is you have to bring in 15 CFM per kid, per child in the classroom to control the CO2 levels and to meet all of the ASHRAE guidelines and the EPA guidelines. So
Because let's face
the
it,
downfall
right
of,
now, we've got a big difference between your two proposals.
right, oh, absolutely.
And I'm just asking, in a temporary way till we can actually know which way to go, is that an option?
The issue that you're really trying to drill down into is you can do that, but the problem is the moisture outside is, the air is
Would it
laden
work
with
in the
moisture.
interim till we could pin
Yeah,
this down?
it just creates, okay, the real issue, it potentially can create mold by bringing in air from the outside.
You've answered my,
The operable windows are gone. Now, I don't know, and
you answered.
we didn't study to see if sometimes the window units have a fresh air damper in them. I don't know if they do or not.
Very small.
Okay. But the operable windows went away, and so the ability to open the window to allow that draft,
Is gone.
it has been taken away. Now, I mean, there are companies out there, you could put in a rental unit or something if you wanted something temporary, to dump air into the space, but to put in a permanent, unfortunately,
Along Dennis's, line here, and I don't know if there's a simple answer or not. I mean, if, and I know we could put in, where the air conditioning units stick or set, you could put in a window that operated or opened and shut. Would that affect the CO2 level? I mean, would that be enough to lower the CO2 level or does it make a difference?
The answer is absolutely. It will lower the CO2 level, but you're fighting the situation of
Right.
potentially bringing moisture.
Right, yeah, I understand,
it's-
and we've had, yeah,
It's just a constant battle.
okay.
And we fought a 2-pipe, 4-pipe system at the high
Listen,
school for many a year.
I know,
So I mean, when everybody says it would work, I think we were told we were buying a 4-pipe system.
I know.
And somewhere along, we got it packed to a 2-pipe system, so we can't balance like we need to at the high school. So again, I appreciate your comments, I understand the issue of mold, but I'm uncomfortable making a decision between these two right now, and I'm just looking at trying to solve a problem, not permanently, but to try to get through this, because one, we know we have an issue. Number two, last year was the first year that we walled up windows that have been there since 1924. Psychologically, that was an issue. That also then creates no airflow, that leakage, that increases the CO2 level. And if I hear the old technology, the original building was designed to leave your windows open a majority of the time and let the natural air convection float up and do a natural draft. All I'm saying is, this is a lot of money to spend because we haven't even talked about what bucket we're gonna pay it out of. But I'm not sure is a 276 or your 398, that gets us to maybe move some fresh air. But I mean, how much turns are we gonna have? Are we really gonna have the air exchange that we have? And again, I'm just asking the simple question, could that happen, get us by until we bring in our own engineer and design it?
The old building codes would basically have an alternative method besides mechanical ventilation. And I believe, you can correct me, it was in about 4% floor area was the amount that they required for operable window area. It's quite a bit, to actually guarantee that you're gonna get drafts, movement.
The last 10 or so years, things have evolved to require a lot more air from the outside to bring down the CO2 levels in the space. And it causes you guys so many problems.
Well, and your quote really isn't 398, it's 323, is that right? You said take 75 off of
That's
that bid?
correct. Yeah, because we were air conditioning the,
Jim?
yeah, we felt like it would be duplicate, the system would make most sense if we air conditioned the multipurpose room at the same time to provide the ventilation. And the reason we did that, there's an intake grill or grate that opens into the courtyard. It's labeled on the drawing, the fire escape schematic of the building. There's a small recess in the building, and there's an outside air intake right there that's serving the heating air handler right now, which actually is running. Well, it was running when we were on site, and so that's actually flushing fresh air through that multipurpose room currently. Unconditioned, absolutely. Yeah, it would be heated in the wintertime with the steam heating coil, but presently it's just flushing through outside air unconditioned. Another thing on the CO2 levels, it wasn't that many years ago, we really didn't, we just started measuring these. And CO2 is an interesting thing. We use CO2, we have CO2 monitoring measurements into our system as well, as Mr. Martin talked about earlier. But one thing to point out is 1,000 parts per million is what ASHRAE tells us to shoot for in controlling.
And that is the point, between 800 and 1,000 is the point at which we as humans begin to detect odor of people in the building. If you go and look at OSHA and what OSHA allows as allowable exposure limits, on a 40-hour work week, you can be exposed to 5,000 parts per million. Now, I'm not advocating that that's where you should design your building around, and I'm not saying that that's acceptable. However, these are things that the industry we're slowly finding these. So is CO2 above 1,000 parts per million? That's where ASHRAE says we should begin to, if we close off ventilation, we need to open it in demand control ventilation. We do that in Neosho County Community College. We were the mechanical contractor on that project, and we monitor CO2 in every classroom, and we have VAV boxes. And when one classroom begins to go, when we reach above 700 parts per million, we slowly start to open that threshold, that minimum airflow up to flush that down. If there's something interim, I don't know, you guys weigh in on this from the engineering standpoint, but I did see a building one time that there was a temporary unit that was installed, and they pumped fresh air down the corridor and then allowed the air to escape out of the classroom walls. And actually, in this case, you could possibly do that with those old intakes that are blanked off with tar paper. You could remove the tar paper possibly and pressurize the hallway.
That's kind of a problem now because the natural systems got blocked off.
Yeah.
And again, it's changed the design of the airflow in that building with fresh air right now.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. The only other solution I've ever seen implemented, other than flushing the space, is to utilize filtration. There are ways to clean the contaminants. The contaminants that we're overly concerned about, it's not CO2 at those levels. It's the point at which other contaminants begin to build up in the air. So.
Would we have to chase you around and make sure we got all 4 of our pipes? Because we lost 2 pipes in the high school system, and I'm still bitter about it. I can tell you that.
I'm here for a long
Promise?
time. I built a home in '08, and I plan to be here forever.
Because I don't want to be chasing people around. It irritates me.
Neither do I.
Yeah. God, we're 2
What's-
pipes short of a
Yes.
full load at the high school.
Where would we pay it out of, Dean? Or would we pay it out?
Okay, come on up here.
Just the air,
That's your comment.
not the HVAC, the other.
You know, I know, Brandon, both of you have been out to the building and spent some time. I know we have spent a lot of time. I didn't tell you in our first presentation, but we had Mark Wenzel with Wilson and Company in Salina. He also came and spent a lot of time going through the building, and we also went through the whole building with 2 different contractors too. We kind of battled through the different problems too, and as far as heating concerns with VRF, I will just reiterate, it's not a problem. I mean, they do. I mean, I can see right on my loads and my capacities. I mean, typically they'll have 50% more capacity. So.
So if we went with your system to do the air quality, but we want to do the 4 pipe at a later date, will your investment work with the 4 pipe?
Would my investment work with the 4 pipe?
276 investment, or if we make the 276 investment, we're going down
That's a question for BCI, I believe. I mean, I would say it's not a lost investment basically because now all you're doing is you're adding the 4 pipe system. You know, he's adding larger boiler, larger chiller to handle the additional load.
all your equipment right now is going on the roof, all of your equipment.
Correct. I didn't say, there was a concern about that, but we have roof access included too, so that's not a concern. And I think there was a question about changing filters on the evaporator that's located in the ceiling. If it's a problem, I think it's a standard with LG that I can get an auto elevation grill to where I can push a button on a thermostat and the grill with the filter will automatically lower and there's my filter. So if that's a problem.
I want one of those at home. We could.
I do too.
Richard, do we have a price what windows would cost?
Yes.
Just, if you have.
Per window, you're looking at probably around $1,000.
How many windows are in there?
Well, we've got probably 20 different classrooms, so it'd be at least 20 windows.
To what, replace one window that opens?
Right.
So if we pressurized the hallway and opened all the ventilation ports and were to ventilate out through the,
I would say you would have to, since you're making that, I know that's how the building is currently.
Yeah.
With the grills through there. From a code perspective, it's kind of a non-compliant type of system, and you're basically using the quarters that plenum for that. I mean, it'd just be something you have to work with your local official to make sure that's okay.
And that, would that be fire code problem too?
that would be fire code.
And they're saying there is a fire code problem now.
Yeah.
You want
Yeah.
to do it as a temporary measure with the
Right.
intent that that would.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't be anything that we would, but as many questions and issues, I don't know how you feel about doing something like that and then really sitting down and having everyone look at that.
What do we, if we postpone this decision, what might change? I mean, you mean, is it because of the financial stuff, or is it?
Well, I think
I'm
as
just
a
wondering.
board, we need to, and that's what I'm gonna talk about later at our board retreat, we need to come up with a plan what we're gonna do with the building. Because if we're not gonna,
Sure.
I mean, if we're seriously looking at building a new school and not using that for anything, I can't see the, investing, whether it's $300,000, $400,000, $600,000 in HVAC system that we're only gonna use for a year or two. So I think we need to decide that before we look at the big picture. I mean, I think we need to focus right now on the CO2 air quality issues, and then, we're gonna have our retreat one of the weekends coming up, and then have a pretty definite of what the plan is gonna be for that building, before we make a huge decision. But I think we need to seriously look at the air quality issue tonight, and then readdress the rest of it after we kind of have that plan.
Do you have something?
Out of respect, and I really appreciate your approach on that, Mr. Catt, as a taxpayer, thank you. There may be a chance that possibly Mr. Martin's solution with packaged equipment and our solution being in the crawl space, the one advantage of the crawl space is your school has been pre-cleaned for the school year already. So, your floors are waxed, it's ready to go. I don't care who the construction crew is and how good they are, it's gonna make a mess. So, the one advantage to the solution that we had, aside from being the aesthetics that we felt like we were meeting or trying to satisfy, would be that everything was in the crawl space down below. There's a solution that I just brainstormed. Mr. Martin was utilizing packaged unitary equipment, roof mounted. Okay, that's a quite permanent installation. There's certainly no reason that we couldn't. Concrete's cheap. We could literally pour a pad outside of that cold storage room and utilize those same chutes, if you will, that we were going to utilize in our installation, but duct air into the basement, and then run the duct in the crawl space. The one major advantage to our solution was the aesthetics coming through the floor. The other thing is we were going to bring a core saw company, and I told Mr. Smith this today. We were going to, we're all here to solve a problem and meet the needs of our district. I told Mr. Smith today we could bring in the core saw company next week, and they felt like within a week's time they could have those holes bored through the floor. So if we had the concrete company come through, we bored the holes into the classrooms. If Mr. Martin's AON type unit, we can increase the static pressure output on those. They have backward incline. I like AON equipment. We put it in all the time. We could set a package unit on the ground, horizontally duct it down into the building. Okay. Now the ductwork that we install, should you decide to keep Eugene Field, could be later reworked and tied to a permanent air handler. Quite honestly, this would be a relatively permanent installation. Cost-wise, can we do it for a whole lot less? We could look at the materials and such that we utilize. I think we could possibly do it for a whole lot less. Your unit, we'd have to upsize your unit to handle 100% outside air.
They are all 100% outside our units, but yes.
Yeah, but we would, if we don't bring the exhaust out, we could eliminate a lot of the installation cost. In other words, we just pump the fresh air in Just put one duct in and pump the fresh air in until we decide what you're doing with Eugene Field long term. So we could put in one unit out there. The electrical service is 15, 20 feet away. We'd have to get, I think we were both utilizing a local electrician, same electrician, Gibson Electric. We could literally have them wire it over, pump that air in, just, the only thing is it's not as energy efficient because we're not going to bring the air back out and run it through the heat exchange wheel. So we would not have to have a heat exchange wheel in the unit. That greatly reduces, it's not as efficient. I'm not promoting it to be efficient.
Probably not efficient today.
No, but I'm telling you, this would work, and I think it would work quite well. Jarrett, am I crazy?
I'm just trying to process the code thing there, but I'm not thinking of anything that would be a problem.
I mean, it really, all code says is, I mean, energy code, but I don't.
It's a relief. He's trying to figure out where does the air go.
Okay, here's where we go. Out those holes that the tar paper's torn on now,
So we'd seal.
You might have to put motorized dampers on.
Yeah,
but that wouldn't be.
to the outside.
yeah, but that'd be fairly easy on the motorized dampers.
Motorized damper
Yeah.
wouldn't be bad.
Okay, that or, I mean, currently the building, the chase wall into the corridors is wide open. I mean, you can stand there and look in there. And Miss Stevens, having taught there, you can look out what I call the closet, and you can look and you can see out into the hallway and vice versa. So any secret conversation held in those classrooms isn't really secret. But nonetheless, I don't know, is it something that temporary? I think if you went to the city, in the time that I spent speaking with your codes officials here in Ottawa, they seem to be very accommodating from the standpoint of, hey, if this is something that we need to do to get by for a period of time, from a taxpayer standpoint, I think that it's something, maybe it's a win-win-win.
That'd be good. We need one.
Could you guys get together and bring it back on the 9th?
Sure.
Or is that going to cut the time thing down?
Well, all we're doing is chopping 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean,
2 weeks is 2 weeks. I mean, you could either add it in on the end, or they
I
can
mean,
work
if you want to
fast.
make a motion, Marge, to move ahead with one, I don't have a problem with that. I'm just looking at it as what solution really makes the long run if we've had that problem at the high school.
if we moved it back 2 weeks and something like that was done, does that cut down on the amount of time? Anything that we're doing? The time frame would look basically the same, but it would move back.
The time requirement for the way we were installing the system, and I mean, tell me, Mr. Martin, if you're disagreement, but Mr. Martin was coming through the roof
Right.
and then coming through your ceiling and going through the walls with exposed ductwork. Okay, I mean, we've done that in other buildings. There's a lot of mess involved. Okay, it's a lot of work above the ceiling. It's a lot of work going through the walls. The solution that we had, the nice thing is, neither one of our systems were going to be up and operational until roughly October 1, just due to the lead times of the equipment and the infrastructure. I think Mr. Martin's proposal was much more challenging to get achieved without impacting the school and allowing your classes to go into session. So I don't see an impact at all if we started, even the middle of July, if we bring the core saw company in, and I mean, I'd be happy to call them tomorrow and just say, hey, how fast would you have this done? To not impact your class, we just need the hole drilled and we put the duct in the classroom down into the crawl space. Then all of our work is done in the crawl space. We can work there during the day and not affect your class. Occasionally they might hear a clunk or something, as we move through there, but
Bad language, so.
yeah, and that's just part of working at a school. We don't.
But in the long run, do we need, since this is October 1, maybe November 1, in the short run, do we still need to invest in the windows to be able to have the fresh air?
Does what you're talking about have anything to do with the windows?
No, this will provide a solution that basically, I mean, other than the fact that it's not as energy efficient, I mean, this will basically solve your CO2 problem. I mean, Jarrett, correct me.
The window is, in my mind, totally a temporary thing that you just don't want long-term.
Yeah.
I understand that, but we've got constituents in our community they've already heard we have a CO2 problem, and our solution, even if we vote on it tonight, will not be up and running at minimum October 1. So we have what's the first day for kids coming? August.
How fast can you get an AON unit? 40 tons?
The units that I was ordering were 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if we go up in size, I think it's the same.
Okay. If he got a 40-ton unit
and this would be temporary, and we want the code official to know that this is temporary. Okay, I like to solve problems. My wife hates that about me. But the electrical room is right there with an exterior door. We could literally board up the exterior door and run ductwork and basically pump the air into the corridor at that location. Don't know that this would solve all the problem, but it's about the best we could do, I think. I mean, given the situation that we have in the timeline,
While you're implementing the rest of it.
while we're getting that ductwork in. So at least we're trying, and if you have a classroom that you feel like, hey, we're just not getting enough ventilation, I think you literally, again, every one of them I saw had the outside grate on the wall with the tar paper over it. I mean, if we had to, we could figure some way to blow air out of that room, which creates a negative pressure, which will bring air in from the corridor.
Exactly.
So, and so that we wouldn't be wasting, if Mr. Martin could get us a unit quickly, we could do that temporarily while we're installing that ductwork, which that ductwork, whether it could be used in a permanent installation down the road.
And besides, Dennis, we don't do testing until the spring, so if they're a little bit slow mentally in the fall, that's all right. And I want you to know that I went to a school exactly like Eugene Fields, which may explain a little bit of my behavior.
Well, Dean, could they get together? It seems like we might have a good solution. Could they get together and then we could do a conference call later in the week as a board to make a vote? Or would you want to do that?
How long, I mean, if we called a special meeting or to just address this issue as soon as we get, how much time would you guys need to come up with a proposal?
We could have it to you by Friday. Okay.
Easily. So even,
Friday's good. Let's
so
do it.
even if they had it, we
Late
could
Friday
just
afternoon.
call and see where
Yeah.
we are. Okay.
What's everybody else think?
That's
Marge,
a good
what do you
idea.
think?
I think
Let's do it.
makes sense to.
If we can save some money
We've
and.
put Mr. Martin in a bad position, though.
What's that?
We've put him in a bad position. All of a sudden, he was bidding here and he was bidding here, and all of a sudden worked together. So, but if you're willing to work with us,
They've been working together real well the last 2 weeks.
good.
I have a lot of respect for Mr. Martin. I know I challenged some of his comments earlier, but I really do. Did you go to Kansas State? Okay.
Where?
Just don't add that in
I'd
there.
be more than happy. I mean, Mr. Martin would be supplying a unit in this
Washington.
scenario, and we'd be providing all the installation part of that.
And I like the idea of doing that temporary airflow in, because then we can have airflow in when the kids and the teachers are back in the building.
Yeah, well, and we gotta get the city, the other thing is the city.
It psychologically solves a problem while you're fixing the problem on a semi-permanent basis.
It'll make a difference.
And spending as minimal as money as we can
Yeah.
until we decide what our
That's a
the
good
future.
All right, we have another idea we're gonna investigate. The crawl space could be the relief possibly. We'd have, and we would have to put fire dampers in there, which we had part of our bid anyway. So, and they're not a huge expense. So Jared's gonna look into that.
That's pretty.
Well, and somebody needs to bring the city along.
Exactly.
'Cause we
Sounds like
might-
he's working with them.
Yeah.
We might be ahead of them.
Good discussion.
All right.
Very good.
Thank you, gentlemen.
So no action tonight, but we'll,
All right, when are we gonna try to reconvene?
I
Friday
think as soon as I hear back.
And I can join by call if I'm not in
Right.
town.
all right.
A special meeting and see
Okay.
where we are.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate
you,
it.
gentlemen.
Appreciate it.
Gentlemen.
I know Richard was
Thank you,
talking about
Richard.
how well you guys had worked together and having that short a time frame. I really appreciate it, so.
Clarify something Bill just said.
Sure.
I didn't find what you said funny, and I'm just wondering.
I
you're
was
talking
j-
about testing in April.
Yes, ma'am.
What testing are you talking about?
State testing for funding from the state. I was just joking.
Yeah,
And
that's not funny.
of course not.
And I didn't know if you were talking about state testing or if you're not gonna test the CO2 levels.
No, 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 no.
Very confusing the way you said, so
All
I
right.
wanted to clarify.
Well,
didn't find
I
it.
apologize if I offended you.
We ready to move on to the next topic?
Let's move on.
All right. 5.03, approve fiber optic network options.
And actually, that has changed to a discussion item.
I was just
We
gonna
don't
say, there's more added since I looked at it
A
last.
bunch added. Andy, you want to explain that a little bit? And
Yeah, okay.
We'll give you what we know, which isn't a whole lot yet. but-
There's a little bit of initiative, kind of led by the city, to do a community broadband project. So, as everybody knows, AT&T has a little bit of a monopoly on internet and has overcharged a lot of us. And so the city's kind of taken an initiative to bring in really fast internet to City Hall, and then try to farm that out to some anchor institutions like Ottawa University and us and the county, the hospital. And then, as part of this project, to be able to bring on private businesses and recoup some of the money that's gonna cost us to do this, or cost the city to do this. So, basically, the city's taking the initiative to do that. They're willing to front all the costs. What they're asking out of us is for us to commit to paying X number of dollars for internet a month to them, so they can start to use that to recoup the costs. And also, they need some of our installed fiber throughout the city that we're not using. You know, usually when you install fiber, you install 6 strands or 12 strands in a lot of places, and you really only need 2 in all those places. So some of the fiber that we're not using, they want to use to get this project off the ground. So all the details aren't set yet, but there's a couple of options. One option is for us to just give us an internet price per month. Currently, we're on a month-to-month basis with AT&T because our contract ended, and we're kind of stalling on starting a new contract to see what's going to happen here. But if we start a new contract with AT&T, it would be a 36-month contract at about roughly $4,700 per month. We're roughly 50% E-rate, so we would get 50% of that back. So the city has thrown out a number of $6,000 a month that they want us to pay and give up our fiber to let them use. Personally, I think that that's a little off. I think that they need to cut us a little more of a break. So I've kind of thrown together 2 options. Option 1 would be for them to charge us the same thing AT&T would charge us, plus reduce it just a little bit to help us maintain some of the costs. We pay about $500 a month just to maintain our fiber. Every time somebody does a dig or construction, we have to pay somebody to go make sure they don't break our fiber. So one proposal would be for them to charge us about roughly $4,500, $4,300 a month for internet. And if they were willing to do that, we would let them use the fiber we're not using. The other option would be for them to charge us $6,000 a month, but give us back $8,000 to lease our fiber. And the reason that would be beneficial to both parties is they would essentially be getting $5,000 a month from us. We would be paying even a little less because of that $6,000 we're paying to them. We could still be eligible for 50% E-rate, and then the $2,000 that they're giving back to us. So essentially, we'd be paying $2,000 a month ballpark internet either way. But we haven't got any of that hardcore in writing or the business side agreement of it.
Are they looking at this as a true community network or them as a point person? Because we did a presentation about 4 years ago, as we did in Coffee County, to do a true community network where everybody's an equal partner and all the dollars are right on the table. Are they looking at that to where it's more of an equal share?
Well, I think that's the concept, but we have such a large, or a much larger investment in the number and all the money we spent because we didn't have that and wanted to have service.
Well, we need to bring it in to where
What
that.
was the name of the town that they're kind of?
Chanute, but they don't, but their district didn't.
Right. So
They didn't
Chanute,
participate.
they kind of got this idea from Chanute, Kansas. They did the same thing, but their issue was.
The big with Coffee County, what we did was we're all equal partners. So we sat at the table and the credit that we've spent is then contribution into the system.
It's not really how this is looking. In Chanute, what they did was every entity needed fiber, the schools, the
They made it a
college,
utility.
Yeah,
and so on. So
it's a need.
and nobody had it. Nobody had the fiber so the city paid for all of it, and they treated it just like an electrical utility.
It was a utility, yeah.
And that's kind of where they're moving towards in this scenario, but the difference is that there's already the county and us, the school district, have a lot of fiber that we've already put in that they want to use to sort of get this off the ground faster. So that's where there's some uniqueness to it. And specifically, the school district has put a lot of money into fiber, and we don't really need this project as much as they need us, specifically the fiber that goes from City Hall up to Lincoln, because it crosses over the river. The school district's the only one that has that fiber, so we can save this project a lot of money by letting them use that fiber at that point. And it does benefit us, but I think it needs to be at least as good a price as we're paying for AT&T. And the internet will be better, you know, you're putting it into a little bit of technology terms. AT&T, we're getting about 40 meg speed up and down. This would be bringing in 1 gig, you know, which is 1,000 megs, into City Hall that can be farmed out to, you know,
Right.
everybody in the town. But we would have a lot better bandwidth, and they allow you to basically burst, they call it bursting, to that whole gig speed. So the internet for our school district, and now we're bringing on more iPads, wireless devices, and things like that, would be just unreal. I mean, it would be so fast if everything goes through the way it needs to go through.
Well, the big key is, I really think there's a value that we have with our fiber in the ground. And that's where that balance, when they first said 6,000, even 5,000,
Yeah.
it should be a more attractive rate for you, Andy.
It is very attractive, and when I kind of challenged it, they came back with me with, well, you would be benefiting the city, you'd be benefiting the community, it's all taxpayer money, you know, all that type of thing, and that's true, but I also, in my position, I know that you're the same way, want to do the best for the school district at the same time.
I agree. I think we need to support it and do what we can, because it is important, industrial growth, or out at the industrial park, and see growth there, and, I mean, the hospital, a lot of people would benefit. But
Is the
I don't
question
wanna-
really to be a revenue generator for the city?
Well,
Because
They're selling it as nonprofit.
I don't think
They
it
have all
is.
the math, and it's gonna cost a lot of money. I mean, we don't have all the fiber in place.
Right.
They're gonna have to run new fiber.
Right.
And they're willing to pay all the bills. It's gonna require a lot more infrastructure, a lot more tech equipment. You're gonna have tech staff that now that maintain it. They basically become an ISP.
I just don't think it's fair to, I mean, in my opinion, for USD 290 to already have invested all the money we did, putting fiber in and doing that, and then still end up paying $6,000 for
it's too much. dude.
internet service, when I think we could negotiate with AT&T and get it to 4,500 or whatever. So, and I meet Thursday about this and see where we are.
Well, I like the
don't
idea-
have any input yet from the city or anybody else.
I like the idea of collaboration, but we all need to be equal partners. in
Exactly,
this.
and
And that's
we're
where our
getting there.
model worked
And
very
it
well.
can't be totally equal, because they do have a good point. The university and the school district are utilizing the internet a lot more.
Right.
I mean, we have more computers, more students. I mean, so, at Chanute, they sort of charge their entities based on utilization. And if they misfired on it, they can actually monitor the utilization, and even though you're almost unlimited, if they see that you're using more than you're paying for, then they can negotiate, say, hey, you're using a lot more than you thought you were, and they can raise the rates. So if they make the rates more based on utilization, their initial shot at making the rates was, they called each of us and said, hey, what do you have for internet and what are you paying? And then just said, well, you shouldn't mind just paying the same thing you were paying. And I don't like how they did that at all.
Well, it could, because we can negotiate our price down
Yeah.
quite a bit.
So what we did was
And we
got a new
just
quote from
haven't, because-
AT&T and said, well, now this is what we're paying, so now
Yeah.
you need to.
Yeah, and that needs all to be
Yeah.
considered, so.
But the tech side of it, I think it's all a great idea, and I think it can work and it can benefit us. We just need to negotiate the business side of
And
it.
who's the service?
Who's bringing the internet to City Hall? Who is it? I mean, like, what's coming in? That they're gonna bring-
It's called CenturyLink.
Oh, okay.
And they have a station about 8 miles away. I couldn't tell you exactly where it is.
They
But
can bring in one
they would
gig,
have to bring in 8 miles of fiber into City Hall.
and that's pretty expensive, isn't it?
And they're willing to do that if there's a commitment from the city
We'd
to
have to
stick with
like
them.
a 5-year commitment or
Right.
something. to do
But
that. It
then-
makes sense, so.
Then is this just for government and commercial? It's not gonna be open to residential?
Oh, I think that's the plan
That's
sometime,
possible.
but I don't know.
That would be way down the road, but initially, they're just looking at
As it's a
government.
residential, it
We've probably
sucks
said
having
that
to have to deal with
yeah,
AT&T
we've probably said
exclusively.
too much already.
The reason the fiber out to Lincoln
don't
is
think a
so
lot of
important
that's
to them is
supposed
they're
to
trying to get that
be real
business.
common.
Don't
part
print all
there.
that right now. We're in discussion mode.
Make sure you talk to Richard
But Andy,
Dynstead
the
before
one
you do
question
anything
is,
on that
like,
article, because I think it was,
partnered with, Valnet
we
agreement,
overspoke
but high-speed
probably.
access to every county participant
Yeah.
using water towers.
CenturyLink, who does,
That part of
Osage
their
County does
long-range plan
Linden,
or
like
just
our
the city?
courthouse and stuff with CenturyLink. And it's, I mean,
City
it's
for
completely acceptable to me. I mean,
The city.
my
will.
home is not.
the concept's good, and I
Hard
think,
to
you know, we
I'll
need to do what
send
we
you
can
mine,
to
our
help,
bylaws
you know,
and stuff.
everybody in
know,
the
for
So we have
They
actually
put
fiber optic lines
They
that
put
we pay
wires
for,
on
that
the
we've had,
towers
that we're
and
running
push
in the
out.
ground and utility
They're-
easements.
And they're
They
even
are.
now
Sorry
They've been
about
back for about 8 years. They're
Really?
now
I thought everything was going to the underground.
Well, it should be.
Closet.
You might, you know that Vanderland
That's the way it was
at
done.
Coffee
I don't
County,
think you get it.
I'll send it to you, because it worked really well.
Yeah.
Because we were down
Okay.
where everybody was paying very little, especially with the E-rate,
Keep them jacking.
because we
Well,
They
buried.
match our
Just
price
accidental.
agencies.
Used to have doors.
If we can match the AT&T prices, we'll do it.
But our fiber across.
depends where.
the
Oh, yeah, it's a-
river is worth a lot of money.
It's worth a lot.
Internet's so
We're
free.
not-
Dug it up over
Who are
We're
you,
not using it, so it's not
one
worth
time,
it.
and
I mean, we're using
there
2
was an
strands of
overhead.
it. We're not gonna give up
Well,
what
that
we're
was just
using.
over there.
But
But
no,
the rest
but-
of it's just
But it's
there.
a valuable pair that
Yeah,
we should
and that
have
was
on
one of it.
fiber.
Yeah.
who are you talking with at the city?
Technology-wise, Chuck and I have kind
Okay.
of driven around just to see what fiber is out there and what the possibilities are, but the business side of it is Richard.
Okay.
Livingston.
We'll get her done.
Sounds good. So no action tonight, you're just gonna continue talks, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
Thursday on.
Initially, they thought they wanted to really jump on this right away and
Now, they
get
had
the
asked us to
decision
try
made,
to
but
make
they
a
found out
decision
that there was-
tonight.
There's a lot
There's
of-
too
there's
many
discussion.
equations, yeah, so.
There's too much information you have to get before.
And I would highly recommend with CenturyLink, because dealt with them since '94, make sure you get a good record of it all the way through, because they turn over staff, and then they lose corporate knowledge of it. We've been there through that.
Yeah, and that's more than the city's the one that's been negotiating that, so they really want to treat it like an electrical utility,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, thank you. All right, 5.04, approved board retreat dates.
What we talked about last time was July 21st or 28th. I had two replies, and I don't remember which one was which. Susan would work better one weekend and March the next, so.
I could do either one. It
I
just,
can do either one too.
The 28th works better for me. My parents have their 60th wedding thing, the 21st weekend. But I don't have to be,
60th. You're
Yeah, I
not
know.
that old.
yeah,
No.
I know, go figure.
Bill, do you have a,
No preference. You said it, I'll be there.
I can work either one.
so what do you
I can do
thought?
either one.
28?
Does the 28th work, March?
yeah, I had to work.
I mean, then, okay.
I was gonna be
Let's look
gone.
at the 28th then, so
Found some other
we
time.
need to publish that
We're going to New York.
as
Meeting.
a meeting, and
Where and?
it'll be here. And I'll have Gould and Evans come, and we'll talk about the facilities plan, and I'd really like the principals to come and talk about all the changes we're making, what their plans are, and how we're addressing some of the issues that we've been dealing with, and
about when we'll go.
have them involved.
Like a
in-
9 to 4 thing or something like that?
What do you want to do? In the past, we've gone from like 8 to noon, but I think it's going to take longer, but I don't know what everybody's schedule's like. Do you want to do more a 9 to noon, or 9 to 4 thing?
How about 8 to 2:30,
8 to 2:30? That.
All right.
or 3?
8 to 3.
8 to
Let's shoot for
3.
8 to 3.
8 to 3, and that'd
Overachievers.
be good.
Break
I
for
think
lunch.
we need to talk about everything that we need to talk about, man, at noon time, sometimes we can't. You know, sometimes.
Oh, I know.
at
Yeah,
noon
we have a
we're out
lot
of time.
to accomplish, so no,
Yeah,
that's
we
great. I'm
have
glad we
some
can do
things
that.
that definitely need to do.
That's great.
Dean, when I was doing the tech stuff, I forgot to mention, we got all the wireless in.
Oh, yeah.
Every
Going
building has
well.
wireless now except for Gardner, and we're gonna start, or Garfield, and we're gonna start on that tomorrow. So that's what the access points look like if you're in the buildings, look like a little fire alarm, basically. They'll
You
put off
notice it on your
three,
phone, if you
I
have
was
an
gonna
idea,
say,
it comes
they'll
up.
put on
and
3 SSIDs,
you
one
can-
for guest. And that password is 290 guest if you wanna connect your devices when you're in the buildings. And then they put off a USB 290, which will manually connect for all of the 290 devices, and then we put one for iDevice to connect iPads and iPhones and stuff that we purchased.
Wondered why
And the only reason they're separated is so we can filter them differently.
Principals are budgeting for iPads, is that the right term? They're gonna order iPads for next year for staff, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of exciting
Is-
things
I was
going
gonna ask,
on. I mean, it's amazing what
Is there
they
an
can do.
iPad app for board docs we can get? Zoom?
I can look, I don't know.
I think there is.
I tried to look.
That would be good.
Because I was trying to look at it the other day on my iPad, and I thought that'd be
Couldn't
nice if
get
I
it.
had an app. I
Uh-huh.
don't.
I've never looked, but they might. As much as we pay.
Yep.
First you'd have to-
We do need to go in executive session for
First you'd have to know what
negotiations
one
after a
was.
short break.
Yeah.
For how long, David?
15 minutes?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I'll see one when I search for it.
You think we need longer?
No.
No, it
Yeah, I
was-
tried to search under the App Store, but then I kind of went to Board Docs and I thought I saw something there, but I don't know. I thought-
Are they gonna come
10 minutes?
presentation tonight?
They should.
What do you think, Marge?
Okay.
Till Friday.
I think
Those
10
guys-
minutes.
Because I, trying to look at it on the
15 with the
internet through
break.
here wasn't
Yeah,
that great.
15 with a
If we come
break,
back at
yeah.
15, we'll be fine.
Those
It won't
guys
take
are,
longer.
those guys are meeting out there. They could just come back in and give us a proposal by
There
the
you
time
go.
we
We
get done
might
with
be,
all
we
the
might be able to
executive
approve that
sessions.
yet tonight, so.
Okay. Mr. President, I move that we, the board, go into executive session for the purpose of discussing matters related to employer-employee negotiations, whether or not to include consultation with representatives of the body, and that the board return to the open meeting at 9:05 o'clock in this room. The executive session is required to protect the district's rights of the confidentiality of its negotiating position and the public interest.
Second?
It's been moved by David, seconded by Bill, that we go into executive session till 9:20, you said?
9:05.
9:05, sorry. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Raise your right hand, whatever. 6-0.
Second.
Been moved by Dennis, seconded by David, to come back into open session. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0.
You want to read the next one? I shut down.
Okay. Mr. President, I move we go into executive session for the purposes of discussing, oh, heck, hang on a second.
Non-elected personnel.
Non-elected personnel,
Of an identifiable individual.
and that the board return to open meeting at what time? How long?
Brandon, how long?
Did you print it, hang off?
15 minutes, don't you think?
15 minutes, so the board returned to open session at 9:25.
Second.
It's been moved by
Me?
David, seconded by Dennis, that we go into executive session for personnel. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. No, 2
Mr.
miles.
President, I move we come back into open session.
Second.
Moved by Dennis, seconded by David to come back into open session. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0.
I'm not sure when Susan voted. Was that for or against?
She's very pro.
Vote often.
That's clear,
All
for both.
right. 8.01, approve the staff list for June 25th, 2012.
So moved.
Did you update it at all?
It's updated.
Okay.
Moved by David. Anyone else?
Second?
Seconded by Susan. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0.
Oh, excuse me. I'm getting too old.
Announcements.
Tomorrow, the county superintendents and some other surrounding superintendents are gonna be in Ottawa. We're gonna meet about some legislative things and just review. Wednesday, the 27th, then, is community conversations. That'll be here at 11:30. That's what I sent invitations out for, truancy, behavior issues. This is all coming from our advisory committee. So we will have that. And I think, Teresa, you said there was 30-something that RSVP'd, so we'll have a pretty decent crowd.
I will be here as COF's representative.
I did, Marge, you were talking about Ottawa Rec, and last 2 weeks ago now, I volunteered and served at the Lunch Bunch, at Don Woodward, and I do that again this Friday, but that's pretty amazing how they do all that and the number of kids and people that go through there, but they do a lot. Next Monday, the 2nd, we will have IBB at 5 p.m. I said on July 5th, if we don't have mediation, there's a superintendent's meeting in Eudora at 10 that I'll attend. It'd probably be a couple hours, but possibly be mediating. We do have our advisory council meeting at 11:30 a.m. instead of 6:30 a.m. Since it's summer, and I'll buy them pizza or something. They come in at 6:30 once a month, and so that'll be nice to have it a little bit later in the day. And then we also have IBB and a board meeting on July 9th. Candidates Forum, July 12th at the middle school. Dennis is gonna moderate that.
I'm a moderator. We're
Are
going to
you?
have fun with questions for our candidates.
Will you actually stick them to questions that are pertinent and have something to do with the position?
I will ask the direct questions if I get none from the crowd of pertinent questions.
I've
So
been
if you
amazed by
have-
the questions that they ask that don't
Yeah.
pertain at all. Like, we got asked one when I was running for school board about city parking. I'm like, that's not a school board issue.
Yeah.
It was because it's about a school bus.
Well, we
Like,
should have our 59th district, we should have our Senate race.
There's a lot. There's,
County commission, sheriffs,
sheriff,
Clerk.
Last
Clerk.
Monday is my son's
Clerk will be
50th
asked all
birthday. I
about
should
abortion,
send him to
I see.
negotiations.
That's what,
that will probably come up.
Yes, all
I
right.
never know what hit him.
so if you have questions.
And I apologize if that offended anybody.
If you have questions, let me know, and I can submit those and see if they're selected, but, we're trying to come up with a pool of questions like we do every year, just have people submit them, and then a committee, I'm not on the committee that does that, but goes through and see which ones are pertinent, so there's always something if people don't.
someone needs to be knowledgeable on that. I mean, seriously, I mean, I go to these every year and they ask questions that have nothing to do with the position. County attorney, I mean, they're asking questions like, that had nothing to do with the county attorney's position. Makes no sense. I'm like, who asked this and who allowed this to come through?
Where'd I leave off? Oh, candidates forum. Monday, the 16th, then, we do have IBB again. Wednesday is the joint luncheon that we host at this office. Monday, the 23rd, then would be the second meeting in July, IBB at 5, meeting at 7. See if there's.
And
whoever-
Dean, when are you gonna are you gonna call a meeting, or are you gonna call a telephone meeting, or what?
Well, we'll have to call a special meeting if they have their stuff. I mean, I don't know if we can get it done by Friday, but possibly Monday. And what time would work better for people? Morning, evening? If we did
Special
it-
meeting, you talking
Yeah.
about?
meeting?
Well, I'm guessing that they're gonna get it back to you Friday morning, so I'm saying that we ought to do it Friday afternoon, go grab the lunch.
If we can do Friday afternoon, Friday evening, early evening, that'd be good.
Okay, I'll just see what they get and then call and see what will work, and we'll
They
have
should have
to.
gotten most of it worked out in the hall.
They probably did.
They did, I think they got a lot of it done.
They both seem to be
This is down the road a ways, but August 3rd is the board president's training at KASB. The next meeting is actually when we'll decide that.
I was gonna say, we don't have a vice president to bump up now.
No, so
It's wide open.
two-term president or whatever you, yeah. So then,
Have to get
staff breakfast
signs.
is August 13th at 7, I think we'll start serving at 7.
7:30, 7?
Usually starts.
This me right
7:30,
here?
quarter
You know
later,
what day of the week
Huh.
it is?
A Monday.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Monday.
It's a Monday.
Anything else, Dean?
That's it.
I move to adjourn this illustrious meeting on this one.
Moved by Dennis, seconded by David. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. Just put board president or what?